Hey, it's Clay. Welcome to another video. This is going to be an introduction and a first of impressions of this new Fractal Audio AX8. I'm very excited to be back in the Fractal Audio family. I owned an AX8 Mark I for many years. Loved it. And the AX8, and in many ways, is everything I always wish that the AX8 could be. So basically, I'm just going to gush about this for a little bit, give some first impressions. I will have many tone clips and demo videos on my channel, but this is really just going to kind of be like a subjective first impressions, how has my user experience been so far type of situation. So let's go ahead and kind of talk nuts and bolts. First of all, one of the biggest things going on here is value. With the AX8 I always felt like it was a premium, professional level product, but you certainly paid a premium price for it. Now I think these retail for $1,400 bucks, and I actually got mine used for a little bit less than that. It's unbelievable the amount of value that I am personally getting out of something like this to cover all of my amp sims, my cab sims, my entire pedal board, to have it all in one, easy to transport, easy to set up little rig here is so cool. I mean, just my first impression when I actually got this is how small this is, just physically, its size and space. If I grab, this is a little MXR pedal, and I'm just gonna kind of hold it up here for comparison. Basically this, in terms of covering your entire pedal board, this is maybe 5 of these times 2. So, if you got about 10 pedals on a pedal board, I mean, this kind of covers that. Previously I had been using a Pedal Train 2 pedal board, and this is, a meaningful amount smaller than that. So for me, at least, this is really awesome that I can have a nice, compact, easy to transport rig, which I really love. Let's talk about sound quality. I was, I used an AX8 for years, but again, coming back to Fractal gear from using other products, I think it sounds incredible. The tone is excellent, the cab sims are excellent, the effects are excellent, and the thing that I really appreciate about it is that it's improving, it's getting better with each successive firmware update. I had been out of the Fractal game for maybe a year, and so from my previous memory, there were improvements. There were areas in which the tone and the response has gotten better, and these are things that apply to all amps. It's not just like, oh, they added a new amp sim, or oh, they added some new. No, they are improving little pieces of their amp modeling that will apply to everything. How the tubes respond, how the phase inverters respond, how the distortion is calculated in the power section. All these things are just being refined year after year and update after update. And it's these little, over time, these really produce some excellent tone quality, which is really exciting to be a part of. Next, I want to talk about how powerful this thing is in terms of using the foot switches and accessing different tones. When I had my AX8 I was actually using a Behringer FCB 1010 MIDI foot controller, and it was a good solution. It was inexpensive, but I really didn't want to shell out for the big MFC 101, where you could really do a lot. That thing was like huge, but it was also really expensive. So with that, I kind of had just, I could access different presets, and then I had different, foot switches to control different pedals. But this thing really takes control to a whole other level. And I'm probably going to do a complete separate video walking through all the things that the switches can do. But between your X, Y, between your different scenes, with the function switches here, I mean, it has a looper. This thing can do anything that you would ever want to throw at it with an extreme amount of efficiency. Just with using one preset, I can access a range of tones that is completely unmatched, in my opinion, by any other type of setup in terms of just power per square inch and dollar, however you want to calculate it. This thing is really impressive. The next thing I want to touch on is a little bit more about the amp modeling, and specifically how the amp block works. And to give a little bit of context, in the last maybe couple of years, I've really gotten into building my own amps. And right now, right over there on my table, I'm building a 6V6 bass Plexi out of a Hammond organ. And I really enjoy tube amps. I really like building them. And in the past year, I've gotten a lot more knowledge and information about how amps work on a circuit level. And so it has been really cool to go into the AX8, and it has page after page of all the different parameters within an amp block, and you really have control over the internals of an amp like you would if you had all this knowledge and were capable of modifying an amplifier. But to even take that a step further, it is so much easier to do stuff in the AX8's amp block than it is to mod your own tube amps. For example, I've got a 5E3 Deluxe here that I built, and I did a lot of kind of experimentation with a tone stack and how the first two gain stages kind of parallel versus series together. And you can do almost all of that inside the AX8. You can put in a different tone stack. You can change the tubes. You can adjust the different values to change voltages or capacitors. I mean, it's so crazy what you can do in the AX8. And so the degree of realism there is something that I personally really appreciate and enjoy about using in the AX8. Now, you don't have to worry about all the other things about modifying amps, about playing with the lethal voltages and making sure you're safe. You don't have to spend the time to desolder stuff. You don't have to troubleshoot if you made a mistake. I mean, it is really, really cool. And as somebody who loves tube amps, I really love how Fractal has implemented their amp block to give you a lot of that same experience. It's not just a British amp. No, it's a 1970 Plexi, and you can tweak all the stuff in there just like you would in the real thing. So I really appreciate that. And then one thing I do need to touch on a little bit is I'm just going to kind of categorize this as ease of use. For me, I am somebody who has used Fractal gear in the past. I used an AX8 for a long time, and I would not say that the AX8 in general is an easy to use product. And I think that still is true for the AX8. As far as getting used to this stuff right here and how the switches work and how to get into things and tweak stuff, I would say it can be relatively complex, and it is not maybe as intuitive as you would have liked. There are some areas with when you use the switches, you need to use one to go up and down, and then the other one to go side to side. Kind of strange, and you've got the buttons over here, and some down here. So I just kind of felt myself struggling a little bit with how to use it very quickly and easily. Now on the flip side, you do have some very effective use of the controls on board here with the amp stuff, which is really great. So you do have the high priority controls easily accessible here. But if I did have a critique or a criticism, I don't love how the onboard stuff is implemented. So on the flip side, I do need to comment about the use of the AX8 software, and that is a breeze compared to using the onboard editor. So almost all of the tweaking that I do of my setup is connected via USB to the computer, and that's an extremely effective way to do it. Now I will admit that for example, if I go to play live and I kind of want to maybe tweak one of my scenes to have less reverb, or tweak one of my the Y setting on my overdrive to have a little more brightness, to kind of just fit that specific thing, something that you can't really get when you're just dialing in tones at home. It's a challenge to make those kind of more deeper, intricate level edits on site. And so just something that I need to get used to. You just have to spend the time to familiarize with yourself with how this works. You have to spend some time with the manual. It's going to take time before you get to the point where you are familiar enough with all of how it works to get everything figured out, if that makes sense. So it's not a easily accessible unit, and if you are kind of intimidated, I would definitely recommend use the computer editor as much as you possibly can, and just that usually should be enough, I think, for most situations. Just be aware that this is not something that I would say is easy to mess around with using the on-screen editor. Just my personal opinion. The other thing I want to talk a little bit about is my experience with the AX8 versus the AX8, to explain some of the trade-offs there and just kind of my experience with it. So the main trade-offs is that the AX8 is a little bit more simplified in terms of duplicate blocks. So I know specifically in the AX8 you can have duplicate overdrives and duplicate delays. And I think that is it. maybe EQ, but as far as your meat and potatoes blocks, you can't duplicate things like amp or reverb or phasers or choruses or all of those types of effects. If it's not a delay or a drive, you can only have one instance of that block. Now for me personally, that has not been an issue or a shortcoming. I think the amp block is one where some people would use multiple, and for me personally, I actually just usually stick to one amp, and then with scenes and all the effects and everything, I can get a really wide range of tones. But the dual amp block really does give you a lot of power. Also, the dual reverbs is something that I particularly would use and would say that I miss to some extent. I really like using double reverb on like an ambient swell type of a tone, so that's just something to be aware of. But as a whole, to get it down to this price point and to have this kind of a form factor, I am completely fine with making those trade-offs because the benefits are just so numerous. The fact that you get the same core tones, you get the same amp models, and all the functionality is just so awesome. So for me personally, I do not miss what I'm giving up going from the XFX2 to the AX8. I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up here. Overall, I'm extremely happy with the AX8. Like I said, this is pretty much everything that I wished the XFX2 was in this more stripped down package. Overall, I hope you enjoyed my kind of subjective personal opinion on the AX8. Like I said, I am really, really pleased with it, and hopefully this can be helpful to you. If you have specific questions about anything, please let me know in the comment section. Check out my channel. I've got a lot of other videos on the AX8 and the XFX2 previously, and I'd love to see you around. See you again soon.